Hello, YouTube. Anthropogenesis is the genesis or development of the human race, especially as a subject of scientific study. So, who is actually the ancestors of man? Nowadays, this issue is becoming probably even more urgent. The theory of anthropogenesis, which has dominated the minds for 150 years, seems more and more absurd every day. In the light of new data, new hypotheses are basically needed. And that's according to a number of scientists and researchers involved in the field. There are enough people who believe in the inconsistency of the concept of Darwinism. So today we will talk about what some people call more coherent theory, according to some of the scientists and researchers I mentioned. And this will be about the origin of the modern type of man from the sea ancestors or marine ancestors. The assumption that millions of years ago man came out of the ocean, expressed in 2005 in his book by researcher Victor Ten. His hypothesis is based primarily on the physiological characteristics of a human being. It is on those characteristics that he finds contradiction in the origin of the ancient hominids. The work of these researchers was highly appreciated by academician Natalia Bekhteryova in Russia. If you watch my videos about the Soviet psi developments, mind control, and similar research, secret research, and gripping cases, you will know who she was. And there is enough in my channel to find about her and her father. So who does Ten, this researcher, write about? Let's try to understand his constructions. You may agree with it or not, but let's look at it. It's very interesting. And by the way, he wasn't the first one in the former Soviet Union and modern Russia to get into this field of research. So, Ten identifies certain exclusives in the human structure, exactly what is characteristic only for Homo sapiens and does not combine in any way with the specific features of apes or monkeys. It is these signs that directly indicate that our ancestor was a completely marine creature. Among them are blood, the structure of the head, hair growth, the spine, constantly suffering on land from gravity. And we'll provide some more details about this latter phenomenon. The spine is our core. It supports a person in an upright state. With age, a lot of people get problems with it. Violation of posture leads to pain and various diseases. This is a payback, according to researcher. Payback for walking upright and for the land-based lifestyle. The fact is that spine is supported by so-called autochthonous muscles, or in a person leading a normal lifestyle, they almost do not develop, and over time, they perform their function worse and worse. Only swimming can keep you in good shape and make you work, so to say. What is this but a legacy from the marine or sea ancestors? It seems that our spine is more adapted to life in an aquatic environment. Another important exclusive feature is nasopharynx. Its structure is uniquely adapted to the aquatic environment. If water gets into the nose, then to the mouth, it quietly flows into the esophagus. Again, according to this researcher, we will not drown. A very useful device, but only for those who often dive underwater. Another unique human hydroadaptation is the ear. There is a bell-shaped cavity in it, with the help of which an air plug occurs when submerged underwater. It prevents water from entering the inner ear. And Victor Ten counted about 30 such so-called exclusives in the structure of the human body. Summing up all the signs, the researcher came to the conclusion that the ancestor of human being, of man, may well be a species of acrodelphids. These creatures were described by paleontologist Georgy Mchedlidze back in the 1960s. See, the Soviet paleontologist Georgy Mchedlidze in the 1960s described the remains of acrodelphids, translated as dolphinids, I guess dolphins with limbs. These creatures had a round head, arms and legs, and were about one size or slightly larger. They lived in about our size, human being size, or slightly larger. They lived in the expanses of Eurasia, where the Tethys Ocean existed. When the process of drying up water bodies began about 25 million years ago, a reef landscape was formed, and acrodelphids eating mollusks got an ideal habitat, but they ended up being locked in closed bodies of water, which created a problem for them and encouraged them to move first into shallow water and then on land. Thus, starting with a lightweight version, bipedalism appeared. It can be assumed that acrodelphids are a form of delphinids, the descendants of which are people. In favor of the origin of man and dolphin from a common ancestor is the fact that in its infancy, a dolphin cub is a small person. Dolphins remember their relationship with humans. They're the only animals that never attacks us. Well, I know cases of dolphins actually attacking people, but I attribute it to later developments and maybe with the pollution of water environment. Anyway, back to Ten's hypothesis. In collisions with people, for some reasons, their self-defense instinct is turned off, and we know only one instinct that can interrupt it, and that's the parental one. Apparently, they disappeared about 5 million years ago due to the drying up of the ocean. I guess that's referring to the acrodelphids. Just at the time when the first man came out of the ocean. Acrodelphid translates as delphinid with limbs. They have arms, legs, and a round head, and its closest modern relative is dolphins. So, again, approximately 25 million years ago, the Tethys Ocean on the territory of modern Eurasia began to dry up. This forced the acrodelphids to land. And first, again, forays into shallow water and then finally deep into the mainland. Very interesting. But we shouldn't rush to immediately dismiss the hypothesis that we and dolphins have a single ancestor. Even the similar structure of the brain speaks in its favor. And look at the dolphin embryo. It's easy to confuse it with a human one. It seems that modern dolphins at the genetic level still perceive us as relatives. And, if you play too much with the dolphins, they can cause the death of the inexperienced swimmer, but for the most of the time, their actions are not malicious. And again, I've heard of a few cases, but for the most part, dolphins are friendly to human beings. Maybe it's some kind of longing that we don't know. I'm not going to go into description of the dolphins. I have a few videos. All I can tell you is I've been studying dolphins for a while, and I understand we really don't know as much as we should or could about their physiology, their brains, and of course their way of thinking and so forth. And every year something else is found that amazes us about their skin, about their brains, about their conduct. There's so much more to study about those wonderful animals. So Victor Tan's hypothesis is not accepted by modern scientific community, and that's understandable. And it's not surprising because hundreds of venerable paleontologists, biologists, archaeologists, and so on have built their careers on the theory of Charles Darwin. And many continue to build on it. However, this does not mean that we should not look at such research. Only further painstaking and thoughtful work will allow us to find the truth. This scheme of the origin of man is of really great ideological significance. How can we learn something about the nature of man, man's essence, man's future, if we do not know where and how man appeared? So I will keep an eye on further research in this area to the extent possible, because I'm interested in the developments of our oceans and what's happening. My emphasis is the unidentified submersible objects, but also some related phenomena. And I'll bring you my findings. If you like my research, I ask that you please support it. You will find a description on how to do it when you read about this video, and the description to this video. And please like my videos and subscribe to my channel and tell others. I appreciate your attention to my work.